Hello, here I am with my not really very intimidating square of empty paper, and I've got another drawing exercise starting from dots to show you. But I thought I'd do something a little bit different and do an inky picture and maybe take a bit more time over it, because I always say you don't have to rush, be in the moment with these. But yeah, I'm kind of prattling on and working quite fast as I'm explaining things, so I might slow it down a bit today. And I'm going to use inks, so I'll just quickly show you these. Obviously, you can use whatever you want. You can use pencils, pens, if you want to do something a little bit like this. Watercolours are good, or ink if you've got it. So I've got a big brush and a little brush. And these are my absolute favourite inks. I'm a little bit obsessed with these. These are Quink inks. They're like old school writing inks. I absolutely love them. So that's what I'm using, but you can use anything. If you've got some old watercolours lying around, that's fine. And I use a spray bottle quite a lot because I quite like to just mess things up by spraying them with water. So I'm just gonna, I've wet the page with my big brush. This is the tricky thing with watercolour and ink, and it really is trial and error. It's like getting it wet enough but not too wet. But it's a nice medium because, again, like with using a non-dominant hand, you're not completely in control, and that can be interesting. So I'm going to start with dots again. You can see how they're bleeding outwards because the paper's quite wet, and there it's obviously not so wet. So dots, a constellation of dots. One more. There we are. So we've got our dots, and around our dots we're going to have ripples. Now I think it's some kind of mindfulness, possibly Japanese mindfulness thing about painting a perfect circle with a brush and one. Now your circles really do not need to be perfect, so don't worry, but it's a nice thing to try nonetheless. So our ripples, you can see where the paper's wetter and where it's not so wet. Our ripples are spreading out, and I'm just going to keep on going, adding more and more ripples. So we've got quite a few ripples going on, and they're starting to overlap each other. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm adding more and more water to my ink, so they're getting lighter and lighter the further away they get from their epicenter. And I'm just gonna give it a little spray just to see what happens. Yeah, just kind of spreads it out a little bit more, which I quite like. I'll just carry on like that for a bit. So lots and lots of ripples now. A little bit blurry because of my spraying. Perhaps I put a bit too much water. I could let it dry a little bit and work into it some more. What this makes me think of is those amazing Japanese Zen gardens. I'll find a picture of one where they rake the gravel. It's meant to imitate ripples in a pond, and they rake the gravel into these kind of shapes. So there we go, that's my swirly inky ripples. I did some other ones with pen. I'll just quickly show you. Oh, this is oil pastels in my journal. So they're really overlapping, the ripples here, and then I kind of added into them a little bit. There with marker pens. You can decide how far you want to go with the overlapping. Here, just with a little black fine liner, and I started with tiny circles rather than dots, and I was kind of playing around with having the circles be slightly off centre. Some lines are closer together and some are further apart. You can also play with thick and thin lines. And when you have these off-centre circles, you almost get a bit of a tunnelling effect. So I was messing around with that there. So, as with all of these, there's just endless ways that you can interpret it, and things that you can do to play around with it. I'll do another one soon, maybe another circular one. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.